Past the hills and rivers wide, where wildflowers freely bloom. In this land with skies so open, where can our children play? In cities bustling bright and loud, cars and lights that never sleep, do they find a piece of sky? Where can our children play? Bring them fields of green and gold, let their laughter echo clear. In a world so tightly wound, where can our children play? Mountains whisper ancient tales, forests sing in harmony. Will these wonders slip away? Where can our children play? Beyond the screens and towers tall, where dreams once were born and bred, do they carve new paths of joy? Where can our children play? Let's be stewards of this earth, guard the spaces wide and free. Do they find a piece of sky? Where can our children play? Bring them fields of green and gold, let their laughter echo clear. In a world so tightly wound, where can our children play? Bring them fields of green and gold, let their laughter echo clear. In a world so tightly wound, where can our children play?
So I'm here joined today with Mayor Heidi Franco, but before we get started on our interview, I just want to read some of the notes that I put together from the night before at the UDOT meeting. So the Heber Valley Corridor project, as detailed in UDOT's recent draft environmental impact statement, known as the EIS, aims to build a new western bypass around downtown Heber City to reduce congestion on Main Street. Both alternatives, A and B, involve constructing a freeway-style road that diverts regional traffic, including semi-trucks, westward. Alternative A sticks closer to existing US 40 before veering west at 900 North, while Alternative B cuts more directly west from Potter Lane through the North Fields, an agricultural area north and west of Heber. UDOT prefers B in their claims that it provides better long-term mobility, shorter travel times, and fewer failing intersections. But it does involve routing through open farmlands that affect ranchers like Laren, Gertsch, and others. My concerns are on additional environmental toxins being released into our atmosphere, hence falling into Heber City's aquifer that feed water to citizens' homes. I had commented in UDOT's meeting the other night that in our current water test report with EWG.org, environmentalworkinggroup.org, contaminations such as arsenic, chloroform, radium, dichloroacetic acid, trichloroacetic acid, as well as heavy metal contaminations like arsenic, cadmium, and others are already in our water systems, as they are with most surrounding towns. With increased traffic from bypass option B, this could lead to even higher localized air pollution from vehicle exhaust, brake dust, fluid leaks, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, tire wear that can all wash into these wetlands and the properties of homeowners in the path of the bypass option B, eventually leading and draining right into our groundwater. These concerns were discussed by concerned citizens the other night. These toxic chemicals can further lead to cancer and other serious disease. Spending roughly $2 billion plus of taxpayers' money, even though EIS states it is lower, $711 million for alternative A and $760 million for B. We all know these costs will escalate with inflation, land acquisition, and unforeseen issues. Funding would come from state and federal taxes that Utah citizens pay via UDOT, meaning Utah residents foot the bill. So harming the aquifer in the drinking water. The North Field sits atop zones for the Heber Valley Aquifer, which supplies drinking water to many homes via wells and municipal systems. Without 100% perfect mitigation, this could contaminate the aquifer over time, especially in a valley with high groundwater tables. To my knowledge, no one has seen a 100% perfect mitigation plan to protect sensitive aquifers. So Mayor Heidi Franco, thank you. I'm honored to have you here.
Thank you.
So what is your opinion on this, especially towards option B, which is what UDOT is leaning towards?
I am not in favor of Route B. I never have been. When I first heard of it back in 2020, I was really shocked, actually, to think of anyone going through the North Fields when the obvious answer, and what this valley has discussed for the 30 years that I've lived here, was to just go from the 900 north around the city down to Highway 189, a minimal round bypass going around the city. And that would be the western side of Heber, and Heber would not annex past that. I mean, that was everyone's plan for decades. So it was shocking to see that line drawn through the North Fields when I knew that it would cause so much in environmental problems, environmental issues, as well as potentially destroy the culture and legacy of this valley that we all came here for. We all came here for the peace, the beauty, the natural resources, the high quality, the water, the clean air. We came here for that, and we want to keep that here. And I've campaigned on that way too many times, all right? And I'm trying to keep that promise. But it seems that with other people that are elected in Heber City over the past 6-7 years, that growth has been the number one priority. And so with all that growth, and then of course the high demand of growth up in the Jordanelle Basin, they have tried to draw that line then through the North Fields. It's really sad to me for a lot of reasons, but if you want to hit the environmental reasons first, that's huge. Right now, with the one annexation that Heber City's done in the North Fields, that's just on that southwest quadrant of River Road, it's called the Slopes. Their groundwater table is so high that they're going to have to bring in feet of fill just to be able to put their utilities in the ground without having the groundwater effect there. They're going to have to pump their stormwater back uphill to get it closer to Highway 40 so that they can do the stormwater treatment. This is what happens when developers want to build in sensitive lands. All right, they're completely changing the way the land is configured, and who knows the protections. We hope the protections will be there. We have a really strong stormwater plan in the city that I pushed really hard for about 5 years ago and was able to get in. But now to think of putting a road through the North Fields, UDOT's going to be disrupting the farming operations and has admitted in the EIS that they're not going to allow the complete access that's there right now for the existing farmers, access to their land. And then,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it doesn't get much better. I'm just going to say, I've got some stories that make me sad, but let me kind of scroll down here. I've got a lot of reasons of why there are tremendous issues with Route B, and it's on my campaign website from last year. So just go to vote with the number 4, mayorfranco.com, and you're going to see a lot of reasons there. Okay, so we know that Route B is going to affect 276 acres within the north and the south fields with a 250-foot wide right of way. Okay, that is ginormous. I know that they want to have space in between the two roads, but that surely means there's going to be space for 3 lanes on each side in the future. And when I asked UDOT about future expansion on, because they started with 1 lane, and I said 1 lane's not going to be enough. And then they went to 2, and yet there's room for 3 or more. So just think about that future expansion.
Well, at that time, it's kind of like an expressway.
There you go. They're not just building a 4-lane highway that they want to build through the Northfields. There's room for much, much more. Okay, so that's huge, that acreage alone. And then they don't know, UDOT admits in the EIS, they don't know how much wetland mitigation they'll have to provide, whether it's 2-to-1 replacement for that many acres or more. It's up to the Army Corps to decide that. And if UDOT buys that land for wetlands mitigation, then will it or won't it be able to be used for farming anymore? You see what I mean? How is UDOT going to maintain it? And then how much more of the acreage will they have to take in the North Fields because they have to do this wetlands mitigation? I don't know if you remember, everyone, but UDOT's been saying for
30 years?
Since about 2020, when Route B or going through the North Fields became more viable, they kept saying, oh, it'll be cheaper to go through the North Fields. It'll be cheaper, right? It won't cost as much because there's no buildings out there. Well, guess what? That was wrong. It is 50 million more now to go through the North Fields, and it could be more. And that should give everybody pause right there, that they kept saying it'll be cheaper, and now it's not, even though Route A would mean taking out homes, buying business easements and things like that. Okay, so that's huge right there. Could we talk more about development in the North Fields? Okay. There's been a gentleman's agreement that I've heard since I was elected, 12 years ago, that Heber City would annex right to that bypass route. And then that would be their border, and then everything on the west side of the bypass would be county. And that was a gentleman's agreement. Everybody agreed to it. No one had any qualms. It got put into our general plan. It's drawn on maps,
Wow.
The original route. It's in our official documents. Anyway, the potential now is that with the Route B, Heber City could then annex through the North Fields. And I have heard discussions, not in public meetings, but behind the scenes, I've heard those discussions that developers want to develop in the North Fields, and that some on the city council want to just buy, park strips, large easement park strips along the side of Route B so that it can screen the development behind it. And I'm just thinking, oh, what are we doing to ourselves, right? Can we really fill up this whole valley every square inch?
Well, they're taking away all the beauty. When you drive down and you come over, the highway there and you see that, that's what we're all here for. That's the beauty. And some of it, like you were saying, on the slopes, it's already going bye-bye.
Yeah, 5-story hotel there that they want, and hundreds of units that will be mostly private. Right, you'll have to, and pay your way in there.
Even then, when families move in, that bypass isn't going to help if they want to go to Smith's, Lee's, Natural Grocers. They're not going to take the bypass. They're going to take the main street.
There you go. And that is I've got to look at it from a Heber City perspective, right? That's who I am elected for. That's who I represent. So from a Heber City perspective, the EIS admits that Route B will not likely take the diesels off the road. And during peak times, they're free to go through Main Street still. And UDOT hasn't done anything to change the main street that they own, right? Heber City doesn't own Main Street. It's UDOT's road. So we can end up in a situation where UDOT owns Main Street as well as any potential Route B, and we're in the middle. Does that make sense?
Wow, I did not know that.
So UDOT controls the speed limit on Main Street. I have begged for years for them to lower that speed limit, and they want to keep it at 35. I've begged them, well, the city's begged them to do improvements on Main Street for walkability or pedestrian safety. We were able to get a few crosswalks, right, with the flashing lights, and that's all good. But that doesn't make it any less scary for the pedestrians that use them.
Right.
Okay?
I have a question. Who controls the stoplights? Like, who
UDOT.
times it?
UDOT.
Because I have to tell you, if they just started with the timing, and there were so many of us the other night that basically were saying, you know what, and a lot of people have been taking videos and they've been timing it.
Okay.
Leave 5 minutes early for work. You know, you can't tell me that they can't do that. Or 10 minutes
That's
at a
what we
cost
think too.
of $1 billion to taxpayers. You know, let's take some of that money and there was a gentleman that made a comment that, you know, the younger generation, they don't even want to get their driver's license. To me, that's sad. Because
It
when I
is.
was getting ready to turn 16 back in the day,
Yeah, we were
I couldn't-
ready.
Yeah, we were ready.
Yes.
But use some of that money. Let's adjust the lights. Maybe provide Heber City with some local transportation. So for those people wanting to go down to Smith's or Lee's or Natural Grocers, that there's some bus transportations just like Park City does. And in
Right,
another comment
right.
too, I'm sure you heard, is look at what they did in Logan. They spent all that money with the same type of issue doing that bypass, and their
Yes.
downtown still has
Yes.
the same
And there
issues.
you go. That's exactly where I'm coming from too,
Right.
is that in the last 6 years, the other members of the city council, the majority of them, okay, Mike Johnston, Rachel Kaler, Scott Phillips, and then another previous council member, they voted for over 9,000 new units. Okay.
Wow.
Remember, Heber City only has about 6,500 units in the whole city right now. And so you can see it's more than double what they approved. Now, most of that density is from Coyote Canyon Parkway, which I still call Coyote Lane, okay?
Yeah.
Is that northward up to River Road and then over the top for the new Tiger Woods golf course and all that stuff up there. But you're going to have 5,000 to 6,000 units equivalent
Wow.
to our city right now, stuffed between Coyote Canyon Parkway and River Road.
And I don't think it's going to stop there.
Oh, yes, but see, now let's talk about that. Look what happened to Logan, right? Well,
Right.
look what's going to happen right here
Right.
when that goes to full build out in 20 years or however the market allows, right? Okay, I'm sorry, I got to calm myself down on this because I have been begging and begging the council for years, have those developers build enough roads for their own density and not just put it all on Highway 40.
Right.
That didn't happen. Okay, we only have 1.5 roads going north-south through all that density. And to me, that is just ludicrous. Can you imagine Heber City having one road, 1.5 roads going north and south, even though we have Main Street? We have many ways, right?
Right.
No, in these new developments, there's a few collector roads that go down to Highway 40, and that's where new lights will go in. Don't forget that, the lights. Okay, we've already seen the one at Coyote Canyon and 900 North, and there's going to be 2 more going in, okay, up towards UVU and so forth. Okay, can you imagine squeezing the whole town of Heber into 4 collector roads and 1.5 roads going north and south?
With bad timing on the lights. No wonder people are getting just
I know.
frustrated.
I know. Anyway, it is a gridlock waiting to happen, is what it is. And so now UDOT came in about 2 years ago and said, oh, we've got to rework the whole traffic model because they finally realized how much density had been granted. And I was saying, hey, I knew that was going to happen. But yet others tried to blame it on the conservation easements that we were trying to do in the North Fields. And boy, that was another sad story. I'll get to that in as quick as we can. So anyway, if you're looking at traffic alone and you're looking at Route B, then what is Heber going to be stuck with? Heber's going to be stuck turning into West Valley Bangerter on 100
Yes.
South.
terrible.
and on 1300 South. But I've got some good news on that I hope will change some things. I mean, they're literally cutting our city up and taking away connectivity on the southwest quadrant and then turning us into West Valley right before Walmart, where you can't even go north to Walmart from Daniel Road, and lots of other problems like that. But now, again, think about it from Heber City, all that growth coming in, the traffic we have now, diesels don't have to take the bypass road. All right, so UDOT's putting in a new light at 1500 South, plus we've got Airport Road, plus through Main Street, then to 900 North, and then to Coyote Lane, right? Coyote Canyon Parkway, and then 2 more lights after that. Can you see the gridlock?
It's going to be like downtown Chicago, which is horrible.
That's Heber City's future,
Wow.
where we will be driving. Because just like you said, people that live out by UVU or people that live up on top, at the Tiger Woods Golf Course, they're still going to come downtown to Smith's.
Right.
They're still going to go to Lee's. They're still going to
because that's where the majority of the businesses
They're still
are.
going to go to the hospital. They're going to be driving right down Main Street, even as walkable as the high density proposes to be. They'll still be driving.
And the thing about it is, let's say for visitors who don't live here, if they take the bypass because there's traffic, just think of all the little mom and pop shops on Main Street, that they're going to miss. My daughter's best friend owns Mountain Meals Wellness Bar. She's right there. So you drive down there, you take the bypass, you're going to miss it. That's hurting business owners too.
And then the city wants to spend millions to draw people to Main Street Park, invest in that park to make it a draw for the local citizens as well as tourists. So it's quite ironic, let's put it that way, to say, get the diesels out of here, but there's no guarantee on that at this point,
right?
Even with Route B. And then get the regional traffic out of here. Oh, but we want you to come back downtown,
to the
right?
park.
So like I say, to me, God, the traffic is not being resolved with Route B. So now let's go to Route A. Route A was the original route that we all thought was going to happen here for decades. We will need 3 lanes on each side of Highway 40 north of 900 North, because get this, UDOT is going to widen Highway 40 to 3 lanes on each side north of River Road anyway. So if they're going to do it anyway, right, for all the traffic that's happening up with Maida and the Jordanelle Basin, why is it they can't do it between River Road and 900 North? You see what I mean? We need that 3rd lane on both sides. We need free flow on 900 North to River Road. That's what Route A is giving us.
Right.
That's what we need now. And yet, maybe in 20 years, we'll fight that battle for Route B if it's needed at that point.
And there's got to be like a better option. Now, I was unaware, there was a gentleman that was talking about an underground tunnel that I wasn't aware.
That was one of the first options.
Which he kind of was very passionate about. Has that been totally taken off the table?
It was when UDOT came out with 13 routes, which meant even Mill Road. Okay, they wanted to have Mill Road or close to Mill Road be a bypass, as well as the original route we all thought it was going to be, and then the Northfields. They had 13 different options. One of them was the tunnel. I knew it was a bit different, but I still liked it. I really liked it. But there are other concerns there, right? It was the groundwater table.
Right.
But, like Mr. Scheid said at the hearing, if they can build a tunnel between France and England, surely they can build a tunnel here, right? And not worry about groundwater too. I was hopeful something like that could be really nice. Another thing that UDOT wanted to do was build a double-decker highway all across Main Street, which I thought was no. But look, now they're giving us a double-decker highway between Walmart and the sewer farm to Southfield Road, which is no. We did not move here to become West Valley. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's all the pollution and all the sick people. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm like passionate about. We know that, I look at the stuff that Dr. Brian Mensch is doing. He's suing the state of Utah and the Great Salt Lake. He just released his chemical report, the herbicides, the pesticides, all the deadly chemicals that are in there. Everything's drying up. I mean, I don't know if it's going to take a lawsuit to shut this down and stop it, but I don't think that they're necessarily listening to really what the people want as far as for safety when it comes to how do they route it. I do believe that something has got to be done, but listen, why don't we start with something that's cost effective? Let's get the lights in order first because it's horrible.
That would work better.
Let's try, let's try a couple of buses. If you
And
don't,
the county has buses that only go to Park City,
Right.
at set times during the day, and they could expand that, but it's taxing all of us, right? It's part of the
it's cheaper
sales
than the
tax.
$1 billion
Yes,
that they
but-
want for option B.
Right, it's just, when is the state government ever going to have that money? It would have to be done in phases. Remember, they wanted $1 billion for the gondola too, and they still haven't done that, thankfully. And if you remember, there were tens of thousands of people that said no gondola, right? Most of the government officials in the Salt Lake Valley said, no, we don't want that. It's not everything you said. And UDOT picked it anyway. Anyway, they haven't done it because they don't have the $1 billion. So what does that mean for us, right?
So, in a perfect world, if money were no option, last question to you, what would be your vision on fixing the issue at hand
Okay.
on the traffic?
Well, because I've been here this long and we've been debating it this long, I was agreeable to the original route. Now with all the growth that we just talked about coming in north of Coyote Lane, we do need Highway 40 to be expanded. No ifs, ands, or buts. If we can make it free flow, that's better for Heber citizens. If we don't do that, then UDOT's going to create total bottlenecks in the 1, 2, 3, 4 access points to get to the free flow that they're talking about. So you can imagine how crowded and crazy it's going to be from traffic light, traffic light, traffic, 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 traffic light to try to either get over right here or here or here. We'll have those 4 big bottlenecks just to try to get to the free flow with the growth that we've approved ourselves.
Not including all the road rage that happens, with the semi-truck drivers. I mean,
Yeah.
or
because
even
they'll have 2 roads now to go through.
yeah.
UDOT told me 4 years ago that the only way they could stop the diesels from coming through Main Street is to take away the pavement strength rating. The pavement's strong enough for diesels. It's built to them. You can't deny them. It's federal regulations. So the only way, if whatever route is built, the only way that Heber City can get back, or I should say ask for Main Street to control it and control the speed limits and control improvements there, is if we get a law from Congress to deed it to the city. I guess we'll see when that happens, right? But there's no way it's going to be supported until a new route is built. And at that point, UDOT will still control both routes, whatever is built, right? They'll still have both routes, control the speed limits, control the lights, control the maintenance also. But we've got a long way to go before Heber City can control Main Street, it seems.
Wow.
Okay. Do we have still time to talk
Yeah.
about conservation easements?
Sure.
Okay. I know that the majority of Heber citizens, not to mention the valley, want to preserve the open lands, the open space, our beautiful agriculture, our history, our culture here, why we came here in the first place. And so I was lucky enough to be on the Wasatch Open Lands Board appointed by Heber. I've been the chair on that for the last 5+ years. And we have taken that open space bond of $10 million and leveraged it 6.5 times to be able to save potentially over $66 million
Wow.
of lands, with most of them in the Northfields as well as Midway. Midway's done a great job with their 2 open space bonds. And Heber City is finally asking a citizen survey about, does Heber City want to have an open space bond? And that'll be coming out in the next month or so. Okay. Anyway,
Is that via email? Should people expect it in like the mail?
it's coming through a well-being survey that we also took last year with the USU.
Okay.
And so that will be promoted through the city newsletter and the city website, and we'll get it out there, and we're excited to see what people think.
Great.
Because it was traffic and growth was the number one concern last year. I'm assuming it could be there again this year, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so anyway, the largest landowner in the Northfields have been waiting since 2018 to be able to get state and federal matching funds for some of the open space bond leveraging, right, funding match, to be able to preserve their almost 200 acres in the Northfields, and that was Laren Gertsch. So you have to get in line, you have to meet all these qualifications, and then you have to wait for years until federal money or state money opens up. And, you know, I know that we can debate whether or not we think this is a good idea about saving farmland and paying farmers, but what conservation easements do is they get a willing landowner to sell just their development rights. And the development rights are 1 unit per 20 acres. Okay, that's a lot easier to buy that one development right than to try to buy a development right, say downtown, where somebody could put in 30 units, right, or 10 units.
Right.
And then the cost is through the roof. Usually the development right is worth half the price of, or the valuation of the property. So Laren Gertsch had been waiting for almost 5 years, and we had told UDOT 3 to 4 years ago that his was pending, and yet they'd drawn their line, right, even back then. So his application kept going forward, and we were so excited last year that he was finally going to be able to get the federal fund match and then be able to use some of the open space bond and be able to put that and keep that for his family in perpetuity, because they want to keep farming and ranching there, which is a great legacy for them. Anyway, as soon as it was this close to him being funded, UDOT said, whoa, well, wait a minute, we got a line on a map here. And we said, we've told you this years ago. And his application has gone forward, and now it's ready to be funded. And so what UDOT did is they called up the federal government agency, NRCS, and said, we've got a line on a map here, and you know, we don't think you should fund him. And so they backed out after him waiting.
He did, on
all
our
that
interview with
time.
him, he did talk about that.
And it
It was
was
sad.
so sad that we could not support him in something that over 70% of Heber citizens said we want to preserve the open space around us, right? And now, because that has happened, now our work is stopped with being able to get any other funding for the Northfields because of waiting to see what's going to happen with UDOT and this final decision of record. So even though the EIS has been issued, it's still draft, and they'll do their final sometime supposedly this year, maybe this summer. But now that the route is going to be cutting up, you know, acreage, taking away a lot of his acreage as well as others' acreage out there, I'm not sure how we're going to go forward. And that was one of the main purposes that we had wanted to do, was to try to preserve that open space.
Wow.
Frustrating, very frustrating.
It's frustrating. I'm sure that you're frustrated. I know that the citizens are frustrated.
Okay.
And out of all the people that spoke, there were only 2 people who, I think one guy voted for option A, and I guess I'd rather have option A than option B. But I mean, none of them, $1 billion. It was like the one guy who came up and said, yep, I'm going to go with option B. It's going to be him, his kids, his kids' kids, his kids' kids. We will never, they will be paying taxes for the rest of their lifetime, let alone his children. And more than likely, his children aren't going to be able to afford to live here either because of all the development. That's
right.
The sad part.
Right, high demand.
Yes.
And the supply is coming, believe me. We'll see if the water comes.
Yeah.
Okay, there was one more thing. Good news. This is good news, and I'll try to make this short. So last night with the elections, thankfully last year, the city council voted to send a letter to UDOT on their concerns with Route B. They didn't say anything about the Northfield, sadly. But on the 1300 South the Walmart intersection, right, where they want to build that double-decker highway across 189 and all the way from the Walmart intersection clear over to the fields and then up and down to Southfield Road and be in the backyards of all of our neighbors there. Anyway, the City Council is asking UDOT to move that further south. And that was something that Yvonne and I had campaigned on, so I was so grateful that the City Council saying, hey, UDOT, can you move that further south so that we don't impact those neighbors, we don't impact those businesses, we don't cut off Industrial Parkway and 300 West from having full north-south access, right? Who wants a double-decker highway in your backyard, especially when UDOT's not going to compensate any impacts to those people?
Right.
We'll see if that makes any difference, but we'll keep pushing on those issues.
So I'm assuming there's going to be more meetings like there was the other night.
No, they only hold the two meetings, the one public hearing and the one online, where they answered questions, and now they're just taking comments to March 9th. And then supposedly they're going to stick all those comments in the draft EIS at the end and supposedly answer all of our concerns or relook at it again. But I'm not sure how long they're going to take on all of that.
Right.
And they have not wanted to change anything except for new development at this point. They haven't been concerned so much with the citizen impacts, but they have been very responsive to developer impacts, which is,
of course,
another interesting thing.
Right. So on the final comment that you're going to have, what would you like to tell the citizens of Wasatch on what to do, where to go, how to fight, how to comment? So if you can just please let them know.
Sure. Everyone, we're the ones that have to live with what UDOT decides. And this is our only chance to really speak up. We've had public comments in the past, but this is the final time that you get to give public comment to UDOT on what you like or what you don't like. And please try to be as specific as possible, even if it takes you a few emails to do it, right? Don't be afraid to send in, well, I remember this now, I'm going to write that in. I remember this now, I'm going to write it in. What you do is you send an email to, I'm almost there, everybody. There we go. Come up now. I'll come back here. Send comments. I know I've got it right here. Here we go. Send comments to Heber Valley EIS at utah.gov. Right? We're the ones that will have to live with whatever ends up here. And this is your final chance to really make that difference. Stand up for what you love and what you care about here and what you really think is going to be best for our community, whether it's the Route B or the Route A. I have a lot of reasons and a lot of issues with Route B, and if you're interested in reading about those issues, there are two great websites to go to. My website from last year, voteformayorfranco.com, or the new one of Can't Bypass the Truth. Can't Bypass the Truth. I can't remember if it's a .com or a .org. I think it might be the .org. Yep, can'tbypassthetruth.org, because there's a lot of reasons there of why we love it here, what we want to protect here. And if you agree, let UDOT know. Please, thank you.
So there you have it. And then as a citizen of Wasatch myself, we all need to stand together because we're better in numbers, and this is the time we can't bury our head in the sand. We have to stand and have our voices heard. If not, then the families suffer and the ranchers suffer. So please, Heidi, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lori Gagan, and I'm on the podcast, The Utah's Antidote, Wasatch Back Solution. Tonight, I am joined by Christy Judd and Nick Lopez, and we are going to be talking about the bypass in Heber. I'd like to say pros and cons, but quite honestly, there's no pros, mostly cons. So we're going to be talking about that. So we're just going to go ahead and get started right out of the gate. My first questions are for Nick Lopez. So Nick, welcome to Utah's Antidote. I appreciate it. I'm always honored to have you on my podcast.
I appreciate it.
So first question for you. What are the main differences for the people that are listening to our podcast and in the audience between bypass alternative A and B in terms of their routes through the Heber Valley? And why do you think alternative B was selected as UDOT's preferred option despite its higher cost?
The biggest difference, the main difference is one is going through the center of the North Fields. The other is remaining mostly on 40 until it gets to 900.
Okay.
900.
And can you just explain where the North Fields are for people who may not know where? It's over by the Smiths, right?
The North Fields is north of Heber City proper and west of US 40 as you come into the valley.
Okay. All right.
That beautiful
That land as soon
Yep.
as you come down that highway and you enter and you see all this stuff on the right-hand
That
side.
is the place.
Okay. All right. So, again, going back to alternatives A and B.
I personally don't like the one that goes right directly through the North Fields. The North Fields is the heart of Wasatch County. It's basically the source of water that goes through the Wasatch Front, and I believe that that route was chosen. Was always chosen. I think that everything else was smoke and mirrors. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that that UDOT and some city officials purposely manipulated the draftings and drawings to make things like the 900 North interchange look worse to the people, saying, "Oh, it's going to go into the Smiths property. It's going to go onto the left side." I think they when I spoke to Craig Hancock last night, first of all, I started talking to him and he didn't want to talk. He actually said, "I have to cut this short and go." So he didn't even answer my questions. But I think they manipulated those intersections. They made it look like this is going to be the worst option, and that plan A was going to be the worst of the two. And I think that was done in purpose. I think they've manipulated traffic lights and slowed traffic down and deterred traffic on Main Street simply because the more they push that we're having failing intersections and all that, then that would make the public side with.
And on top of that, the lights are horrible.
The lights
it's
are
like,
horrible.
oh my
They're
gosh, they haven't even
timed.
tried to tweak that yet.
No, the lights aren't timed correctly. You don't have left-hand turn lights that work all the time to get traffic off Main Street. Heber City and UDOT have dragged their feet about making right-hand turn lanes, designated right-hand turn lanes, where main flow traffic can continue going. Where if someone slows down in the right lane, especially on 100 South and Center Street, there's no right-hand turn lanes. They literally make a right-hand turn from the travel lane, which slows and bottlenecks traffic. So I think they had some manipulation, or they have the ability to fix the problem without destroying the North Fields. But I think that was their plan all along.
Okay. And, I'm just going to make a comment. So, Nick, you what position was it that you were running for?
I've run several times.
Yes.
I ran for county council 2 years ago, and then last year I ran for city council.
So you ran for city council and against Colleen Bonner.
No, that was for county council.
County
2
council.
years ago.
Okay. And I think one of the things that Colleen ran on is over my dead body. I'm never going to let the bypass happen. And now she's a big supporter of option B, which is the most toxic, by the way. And we're going to talk about that, just the additional chemical poisoning that it really brings into our atmosphere. And now she's a big proponent of it. And this is my opinion on this, is that she ran on something she said she wasn't going to do. And now she's doing it, which was really just a false campaign. I didn't vote for her. I voted for you. I've been open about that. But I think that because she is in support for the people that she, the campaign she ran on, that she wasn't going to let it happen over a dead body, and now she's in support of it. I just think that's, one of the lying, thieving politician, the things I grew up on when my dad used to tell me with that. But what's the difference between alternative A, which for me, my understanding when I was with Laren today, alternative A would be the least toxic.
Yeah. So of those two, you're absolutely correct. Which route is the worst as far as toxic atmosphere, getting into the water, ruining the aquifer. I have, from the beginning, have never favored a bypass going through any of that.
I remember that. You ran on that campaign.
I was very solid at that thing, and during this last campaign, they come out with these things, and they had already chosen, we're going to go down to these last couple of choices. And so of those two, I chose the one that comes off 9th North. Because that was the least, it wasn't going to divide, long-term resident, historic farms.
Right.
That kind of thing. It wasn't going to destroy that, what we all love. But I'd still love to see them scrap both of them and utilize the ground they already own on US 40 through town.
Right. Well,
of the two, they're going to, I think the one, Plan A is the best one.
Yeah. Or come up with another option. And I know there was a gentleman that talked last night, about a tunnel, which I believe that Heidi, our mayor, basically said it wasn't off the table, but I don't even think the people of, Wasatch even got a chance to hear about that.
Right.
So, next question. With project costs estimated at over $7 million for either option, how does UDOT justify spending taxpayer dollars on this bypass? And what are the long-term economic benefits of the drawbacks for Wasatch County citizens?
I think you misspoke. It's 700. It's over 700 million.
Oh yes, didn't I say 700 million?
You said 7
My
million.
mistake. 700 million, 1 billion.
That would be a
It's
bargain.
pocket change.
700 million. And I think if you were to build it now, even though they're quoting $750 million, I think it's going to clear $1 billion by the time they get it
That's
done. And
what
if the
people think.
contractors build it, and they build it like they build I-15, where they get large bonuses if they rush it through, it's going to clear $1 billion right off the bat.
Right.
And I think that most Utahns, because we didn't have the local news there, are not listening to this. We had the Park City news agencies there, but we had no local news. So I don't think, for the most part, Utahns know how much of their tax dollars is going to go into this bypass. I think if they did know the controversies behind it, I think you would see a lot more support to say no. We could use $1 billion on other projects rather than just to be convenient for those that want Main Street to be this walkable utopia.
Well, it's still a walkable, beautiful,
It is,
place to walk. I don't think
you
we
look
need
at
to
some
put
busy. Everybody hates to talk about California, but if you look at PCH Highway 1, and let's just take a section that goes through Laguna Beach. Beautiful area.
Yeah.
Beautiful. They have shops, they have restaurants, they have bars. Their sidewalks in some places are only 4 feet from the road edge, for the parking edge, to the restaurant door.
Right.
They got a 4-lane road going through there, and yet they manage it.
Yes.
It's beautiful. People flock to that area, and I think we can still do that here on Main Street, without destroying our beautiful area.
Well,
our
in 10 years of construction, and I think someone put it in kind of like in perspective, last night about talking with this, that Logan put in, they've got 96,000 citizens out there, and they put in millions and millions of kind of something similar that Heber is, and it still hasn't solved the Main Street problem. And we have, 38,000 citizens here? So if they've already done it and it's a failure because they still have problems on their Main Street, why would we replicate a failure? I mean, we're smarter than that, I would think. And, just another comment on that, because we talked about how it could potentially be over $1 billion. We all know it's going to be over $1 billion. But then you get like the people who write the bonds, like Scott Phillips. I'm sorry, he just does. He writes the bonds. He's getting money. I mean, that's part of where some of the money's going to go. Somebody's got to pay something. And I just want to make that comment because I don't really honestly think it's fair, not only to me as a Heber citizen, but to the elderly who could barely afford to live here with the tax increases already. Right. And yes, maybe they can sell their house. Layton's mom's a good example of it. She's 68 years old. She's back to work full time, trying to pay the taxes on that. Another tax increase. Yeah, she could sell her house, but where's she going to live? Nobody can move here. Even the small little rinky-dink houses that they built over by that nursing home, by the railroad tracks over going towards Charleston, where I used to live, those things are going for like $1.2 to $1.3 million, and you are literally sitting on the sidewalk. Right. I'm sorry.
So, you talk about the people not being able to pay their rent, having to sell their properties. That same individual approached me in a campaign event, and he said, "You don't have a plan. You don't have a plan." And my concerns were, I said, "Scott, I'm concerned about at that time one of the routes in the southern end that was going to possibly take out part of the trailer park there." And I says, "Where are these people going to go?"
Right.
I'm concerned about these 68 families that live in these trailers. Where are they going to go if this is the route going to go through there and destroy their homes? And he said, "I guess they'll find another trailer park." That simple, that quick, and I was, surprised that this is city officials,
right? And
these 68 constituents weren't important to him.
I'm further shocked because it's considered. I mean, Utah is a land of Christians, Mormons, other type of faiths. But for me, when people say that, it's like, how can you call yourself? Like, hey, I'm a faith believer, I'm a Christian, I'm this, but then you're willing to say, well, 68 families could just find another place to live. We know that they can't.
No, absolutely.
So last question, then I've got a question I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
So for local homeowners in the Northfields area, how will increased truck and vehicle traffic from the bypass affect daily life, the property values, compared to keeping more traffic on existing US 40 under Alternative A?
Well, you have these grand farms, and I was talking to my wife today, and she says, "I don't understand this bypass is going to divide." And I said, "We listen to these generational ranchers and farmers that have owned that property since Ulysses Grant signed grants, and I'm not a cattleman, but I know they move those herds back and forth across those roads. They load them up on trucks back and forth. And if they're going to divide pasture, how the logistical problems of just getting those herds from one side of the bypass to the other side of the bypass, let alone and make it safe.
Right.
I mean, they can walk them up under the underpasses that they're going to build out there, but it's not what they've had for generations. So that's going to affect them. I think it's going to affect their irrigation. I think it's going to affect the groundwater. I think even their cattle is going to get sick. You start thinking about how much field dirt has to come in to that thing. And where is that field dirt coming from? Has it been contaminated? Is it coming from some job site or some location that is
just
impure?
Filled with chemicals,
poisons, dust, poisons, dirt, sand,
and you look
silt.
at like what could have happened over by Coyote Ridge with all of those houses and townhomes that are going up. They didn't want that gray water coming in and washing out, what they have there on the land. So yeah, you're exactly right on that.
Right. So they're bringing in outside dirt.
Right.
That hasn't been probably tested into here. And that to me, that's something somebody ought to look at and say, hey, this is not good.
Right.
So I think it's just their daily operation, their daily lives.
Right.
I mean, think about it. If somebody ran a one-lane road between your house and your back property, how's that going to affect you daily? Now, this is going to be a 4-lane road with bike lanes in between that and people going basically through your backyard.
Right.
And they say they're going to compensate them, but you can't compensate a lifetime of farming and ranching.
No, you can't. So. Not with the little bit that they're going to compensate. Right. So one last question before I hand the mic over to Christy. Do you think you'll run again?
I have enjoyed running. I think I've run 7 or 8 times since I moved up here 12 years ago. And I enjoy meeting the people. If I say I had a hobby, it is. I've met all you wonderful people. I've met so many other people, whether door to door, at meetings, whatever, people calling me on the phone. With those people and the people I met in the veterans programs that I've done with Main Street now, I've met so many families. I've learned their family histories, and it's just neat to start to walk into Smith's or to Lee's Market and say, hey, how are you? Or have them approach you, hey, I voted for you. And so, we took a break from this one. I didn't want to run for county council. I'm doing my last year at the fire department. I think this is going to be it. It'll be going in my 34th year if I clear the fall. So I kind of wanted to take this last year, and I'm going to miss the fire department. So I need to enjoy it. Go there and just enjoy it, and not have. So in a way, I take the loss, and I don't call it a loss. I think it was a gain. I gained new friends and new acquaintances.
Right.
So that was not a loss for me.
Right.
And so, to answer your question, if I'm going to run again, I want to say yes. Because my wife told me, she says, if you retire, what are you going to do? You're going to drive me crazy because our shifts are 48 hours.
Right.
And so she has 48 hours of me not being there, under her foot. I'm as bad as the dog under her foot. So she says, you need a project. I said, so you're either going to get elected, you're either going to run and you get elected, so you have something to do, or you're going to drive all of us crazy. So either continue working the fire department or get elected. So
I think you should run again and retire. What do you love about Heber?
Oh, I came up here 12 years ago, and it reminded me, back 12 years ago, it kind of reminded me of Sandy when I was a kid in 1969 when my parents moved to Sandy. There was a lot of open space between Sandy and Draper and Sandy and Midvale. There was open space, farmland, just like this. Some of the same meadow wildlife was there, jackrabbits, all this stuff. So it kind of reminded me of that. Also, the airport. We lived across the street in Sandy from the Alta Air Park.
Wow.
And so we saw the skydiver school that was going over there. I saw airplanes fly over. So I was close enough to the airport. I was like, it doesn't bother me. So it's just a tranquility. And after getting back from Iraq, I wanted to get away from that and going for a divorce. I wanted to get into a place where I could just be myself, where I can just heal from the war, relax, trying to just get away from Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is a pretty dynamic place to work, in EMS and fire, and I just needed some peace and quiet. And the 40-minute ride home from downtown is just therapy for me. So I love this place. And now my wife and my stepson live with me and our dog, and we're in our peace, and we're at peace here, and I love it. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, Christy, you're up. All right. So let me get to your questions. Question 1. How will all construction and operation of the bypass, particularly Alternative B, through the North Fields impact air quality and traffic pollution for residents living near the route? And how will all of the off-gassing of the fuel impact the main aquifer that feed residents' homes as drinking water?
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest concerns with this bypass B route is the off-gassing and the aquifer. Those are two very big things. So the air quality will obviously diminish. And also, I think being right on top of the wetlands and on top of our Class 1A aquifer, it's not going to impact only the residents that live right there. It is going to impact the entire valley, and it's going to impact even the Wasatch Front.
Right.
Because the way that aquifer is set up, it transfers very far with the water. So if Heber Valley wouldn't have approved thousands and thousands of housing units without planning for the roadways, it would have been very helpful because there would have been other options for the bypass.
Right.
And so now they're saying there's no other options, but staying on 40 is still the better option. So alternative A is a much better option than alternative B because of that. The chemicals from the off-gassing will pollute both the aquifer, the wetlands, and the Provo River, which is also an important source of water that is right there
Correct.
in the North Fields. So we should be concerned about it for sure, but we do not have details yet from UDOT on their mitigation measures and efforts for those specific things.
So have they not posted any of that
So-
on how 100% of mitigation is going to work?
Right. So they do have a section for those type of things. It just doesn't get into details yet. That happens further along in the process. I think this is something that we are going to need to continually be asking about. This is
Right.
something we can't let go throughout the process, that we need to ask UDOT specifically, what are the plans? What are the detailed plans? It really is one of the greatest questions we should be asking about the bypass. We're in this open comment period right now until March 9th.
Okay.
The comments you can make to UDOT, and it's on their website, or you can email them, but all the information, if you just Google Heber Valley EIS, it'll pop right up.
Okay.
These comments need to be thoughtful and not just complaints saying, not just the problems, but do we
Right.
have solutions? What kinds of things can we help with? Or concerns. Concerns are also good to bring up. Very specific concerns, like with the aquifer, and get into detailed questioning.
Okay.
So all of that water from the Provo River goes downstream and affects all of the Wasatch Front as well as the Wasatch back. So the drinking water contamination should matter to everyone. And then the aquifer, of course, is the main source of water for Heber Valley. And it is, the cleanest water you can get at this point. So why are we risking that?
Right.
For a road that could be moved just a few feet.
Right. So can you explain to our audience, where does the aquifer roughly start? And where does it roughly end?
Ooh, that's a good question, and I'm not sure I have enough information
Okay.
to say that specifically. That's
Okay.
something I would have to look up and get back to you
Okay.
on.
Okay.
I am definitely not an engineer, but it is under the North Fields.
Yes.
So the North Fields acts as almost like a filter. The water comes down. Most of the North Fields are wetlands, and that's what slowly feeds that aquifer.
Okay. Okay.
So-
And that was my understanding too. That's where the aquifer started, was over there in the North Fields, which then you would think that right away that it should be protected by whatever land bill, water bill that there is.
So there are protections in place in the laws, and we need to make sure that UDOT is following those laws and with those protections. But we need to hold UDOT accountable. So yeah, that's something we definitely need to work on as a community.
Right. Before I ask the next question, there was a gentleman last night who made a public comment about bringing in a third party to do some of this testing that wasn't part of Utah. Like sometimes we just have to go out of the state. And I'm just going to say, we all know that Utah, I'm sorry, is corrupt. I mean, it just is. It's I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. And he suggested that we should be bringing in some of the bigger companies to do some of this testing. Are you in agreement with that?
Oh, I think it's a fabulous idea.
Okay.
And I think that's also something we can put in the comments.
Okay.
Everyone as citizens you are welcome to make comments to UDOT, make suggestions, and if it's something that makes sense, they will respond to it.
Okay.
So I think it's a great idea.
Okay. And we had a lot of really great comments last night. I was actually really impressed because out of all the people that were talking, there was a couple young buckaroos who maybe said, hey, I'm going to support this and I'm going to support that. But I'm going to be honest with you, if they have children and they know about the chemicals that are going to be off-gassing, I think maybe they would probably second guess it. So I really appreciate that guy's comment last night on bringing in someone.
Yeah,
but,
and-
as Wasatch citizens, every one of you have got to have skin in the game. You can't leave it to people like Christy. You can't just leave everything to people like Nick or even our mayor, who obviously is not, she doesn't like option B, but you can't just think that somebody else is going to take care of it and just bury yourself in the, your head in the sand, hoping that it's going to go away. We all need to show up as a big group because we are better in numbers than onesies, twosies, threesies on that. So I just
Absolutely.
wanted to make that comment. So Christy, next question. So for local farmers like Laren, Gertsch, and others that are out there, as well as the homeowners in the North Fields, and Jill Watson and I did an interview today with Laren that we're going to be putting out there in next Thursday's podcast. Was it like a pretty brand new house? It was beautiful. That bypass, honestly, is just going to run right there, and it's.
Right.
I mean, it broke my heart when I saw it. But how will all of that, with the increased truck and vehicle traffic from that bypass, affect daily life, the property values, environmental health, compared to keeping more traffic on existing US 40 under alternative A, but also how does it affect the wildlife? I mean, all that stuff's going to be going into the wetlands where they're eating the hay, they're growing the grass, they're drinking the water. So can you just explain to our audience what your opinion is on that?
Yeah, bypass B going through the North Fields will disrupt all of the farming. There's no doubt about that. You cannot cut this section of land in half and still have the same amount of farming we do now. The road width is a total of 250 feet, and bisecting every farm all the way down from Potter Lane. And we don't even know how these farmers are going to move their cattle, how they are going to move their farm equipment, how they are going to irrigate on two different sides of a massive freeway. And that's without the concerns of all of the runoff, the toxic polluted runoff from the road. They want the tankers on this road, right? They are going to try everything they can to get the tankers to use this road. That's terrifying.
It is.
That it's right there over the cleanest aquifer we have one of the cleanest aquifers we have in Utah, to endanger it like that. So there's just so many different things that they're doing. It is going to affect everybody's daily life. When you put a bypass in a road like that, you are going to affect homes. And I'm not going to side with if your home's here or your home is here, it's worth more or whatever. But for environmental reasons, for agricultural protection, which a lot of these farms, hundreds of acres in the North Field, have agricultural protection areas on them, meaning they should, in perpetuity, will be farmed, and that they have those rights in the state law, and that is also not being taken into consideration. So it's just going to damage everything, let alone the view shed, the air quality, the water quality. It's
Right. The
pretty
noise
widespread.
pollution.
The noise
And then
pollution.
you think-
And the birds. Sorry,
Yes.
the birds and wildlife. I
Yes.
didn't get to that. Massive. There are all kinds of specially migratory birds, cranes that live out there. There's endangered species, frogs. There's actually endangered plants. So there's a lot there that we're going to lose. And I know people are just so anxious to improve the traffic. But I think we need to take the whole picture and not focus on
Right.
the 6 minutes.
Right. And you know what? It comes at almost $100 billion at a cost and 10 years of construction that nobody wants to live through. I mean,
That's true, too.
And then you think about how many times does the Provo Canyon get shut down? Probably at least once a week. How many tankers have fallen off and went into Deer Creek Reservoir
Oh, we've seen that
with all
happen.
of the gasoline? I mean,
Yeah.
what happens when you put up a concrete little road, and then what happens if, a truck going 55, 65 miles an hour steers off the road, hits the concrete wall? Do you really think a concrete wall is going to hold up a trucker that's going 65 miles? And let's face it, they don't always go 65 miles. I mean, I love truckers because they get stuff that we need from point A to point B, but let's be serious. Hardly anybody follows the speed limit. And we're already understaffed in, the sheriff's department. Who's going to monitor then the freeway? So anyway, so thank you for that. Next question. What specific risks does the bypass pose to the Heber Valley Aquifer? We talked about that, including the potential contaminations from road runoff. And we talked about mitigations. They're really not really sure, but what about the additional? How do they talk about how they're going to mitigate something when they're not even considering the road, the runoff from not only just the fuel, but who's going to prevent them from jake braking? What happens, they blow a tire? Where's the rubber going to go? Where's the toxins going to go? And some of these people are going to be living right underneath the bypass. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a huge concern. I think all the way across the board. I know we jumped ahead to the aquifer, but this, I cannot state enough how important that aquifer is for every single person living in this valley, and any damage to that aquifer. And we have to protect it. And this is not the way to do that. And so the wording, sorry, I'm going to read this so I get it right. They have to protect the aquifer to the maximum extent feasible from degradation. So we have to hold UDOT to that. But UDOT's own early scoping documents acknowledge that the Northfields contain over 750 acres of wetlands, riparian areas, and wet meadows, the lands that recharge the aquifer. So it's not just the aquifer, it's also the top, right, where they're putting the road that's the concern. On top of, and we know the aquifer is already in trouble, and with the growth that's slated for this valley, it's going to cause even more trouble. And if they put a road there and stop or dry out areas or cause any type of chemical, like, what is the recourse? I don't think there is any, and I think we need to figure that out ahead of time before the road. So we, there is the Utah Clean Water Act, it's the Federal Clean Water Act, and it's the 404. They do have to follow that. But like you said, maybe we need an independent third party to come in and check on that. If there's an environmental engineer out there that wants to get in contact with me, I would greatly appreciate that. That's something we could really use.
Contact with you?
So if you just go to friendsofhebervalley.org. That's our website, or you can find us on Facebook, or just friendsofhebervalley@gmail.com.
Okay, all right. So last night I made a comment about what the environmental working group put out on what is already contaminated in the Heber water systems that we're currently drinking. So I did independent testing with HRI Labs and Great Plains Labs on what's coming out in the city buildings and in our schools. And there is a very minute, it's not a lot, but I don't think any poison should be allowed in anything going into our children and our grandchildren. But we already know that glyphosate is in our water. And I think that should be a public concern. And glyphosate, for those of you who don't know what it is, glyphosate is the active ingredient that Roundup Bayer puts in Roundup, or Bayer Monsanto, because Bayer bought out for $66 gazillion, Monsanto. But some of the things that already came up in our current water system that we are drinking, that we are bathing our children, bathing our grandchildren with, and showering with, is arsenic, chloroform, radium, dichloroacetic acid, trichloroacetic acid, heavy metal contaminations, again, like arsenic, cadmium, and others. Considered class 1 carcinogens, meaning it may cause cancer. And Christy, to date, The largest guilty verdict by Bayer Monsanto, and that's the glyphosate that Robert F. Kennedy has been fighting all of his career, is a farming couple in Central California, and the guilty verdict was $2 billion. The husband and wife, who had been farmers, who had been spraying Roundup, who were told by Monsanto, reading the label, it's not hazardous, both came down with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a known cancer from Roundup. Now, obviously, we know that Bayer's going to fight. My girlfriend actually is a caseworker on that and works for the law firm up in Northern California. And they're not going to pay out the $2 billion, but they're going to get a large sum of money. I don't even care if it was $2 billion. Somebody could offer me $2 billion, and I would not say I would take non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There is no cure for it, and the only thing that becomes of it is death, unfortunately. So now we have all of these other contaminations that are going to be coming into the atmosphere, our clean source aquifer, and it's going to be poisoning our families, poisoning our children, and poisoning your grandchildren. And unless we stand up in numbers, unless we all come together as a community and say, hey, enough's enough, go back to the drawing board and fix it. We don't want your poison. We don't want to harm the ranchers, people like Laren. We don't want to harm them as well. I think they need to go back to the drawing board. So with that said, I'm going to let the two of you, Christy, go first. You've got the mic. We'll hand it to Nick. One last comment before I want to talk to you about the new website that was just launched.
Okay. I think overall, I just want to say our comments to UDOT do matter, and I encourage everyone to make those comments. Be very specific about what your biggest concerns are, and if you have suggestions on how to fix them. But we definitely need them to understand the level of concern here and to demand really rigid testing and to make sure that they are following the very letter of the law on these things.
Thank you. Nick?
Hey, I've got something I failed to bring up earlier, and I think it's extremely important. It's just as important as the Northfields, and that is the 1300 South portion of this bypass.
Okay, and where is the 1300 for some of us that still don't have the maps?
It's the
embedded
road
in our
that comes
brain?
off of 189 from the intersection
Okay.
that goes down, like as if you were to drive. It's in front of Walmart.
Okay,
Right there.
okay,
Right next to the new credit union. This sits on that road that will be blocked from access. But there's 28 homes. I counted 28 homes in two different subdivisions that will now have. UDOT said it was 25 foot or 24 foot high wall, but that didn't count. That's where the road level is. You'll still have another 4 foot parapet up there, and then you got 15 foot tall semi trucks up there on a single lane in both directions. In the backyards, their fence line of these people's
Literal
backyards is in their backyards. They'll have the road dust, they'll have the brake dust, all the contaminants that come off a major highway, off the semis, elevated coming into their property. I can't imagine living there by the noise of the Jake brakes. I can't imagine having my kids safely play in the backyard, waiting for that semi truck that will come through that concrete barrier. We just had a truck on Parley's Canyon, which is where I work quite a bit. They just had one that stopped traffic for a number of hours, and he just came on that curb by the reservoir down there at Parley's Canyon and blew right through the concrete barrier. No, it didn't even stop it. Mm. So those people have an enormous hit if this bypass isn't moved from there. And when you ask UDOT, you ask the officials in the city, why is that the route? Well, it's always been the route. Well, someone said during the campaign that the 20-year plan or the master plan is outdated and we need to update it. Well, you do have to update master plans because time changes, things change, and populations change things. Well, this route is the wrong route. So I asked Craig Hancock last night, this is the question he walked away from, why are we not staying on your footprint of 189? Why are we cutting across the gentleman's property that he was going to develop? Why can't we reconstruct and re-engineer the 189-40 interchange? There's enough space in there, and there's vacant businesses that haven't been working there for a long period of time. The Tunex building and the steakhouse. You got enough to make that the interchange. And why not keep it on 189 until you pass Allen's, the Allen family rock quarry, and then cut across the sewer field? And he says, well, it's the sewer field. We got to preserve the sewer field. That's what he said. And I says, what's the difference between 250 feet in the center of the sewer field and 250 feet next to the homes in the sewer field? There's not. Same sewer field, same amount of footing. Why not keep it on 189? Today I was thinking, and I looked at the map and I went, they've talked about it since I've been up here about expanding the airport. Right? So if we put the bypass and keep it on 189, and I asked him, he says, you're only adding half a mile more freeway that's kind of a little bit out of the way, not really much, 2 blocks away. Yeah. You're adding half a mile to your course, and you're not elevating it. What is that stopping? Well, we got to have free flow. I says, what about the 3 traffic lights that are on the south end of 40 going towards Daniel? You're going to have 3 traffic lights there. You're going to have the one by the hospital. You had the one on Airport Road, and now you got one going into the next major road. Anyway, there'll be 3 of them between there and Daniel. So the truck's going to have to stop for that. So why not another one? So my idea is somebody's talked to UDOT, somebody's discouraged UDOT, because even if they don't move the runway left or right, or they decide to move the runway a little bit closer to that road, they still have available property for hangars, businesses, hotels, whatever an airport may need or want in the future. So they don't want a major highway there. That's my opinion. But I really am concerned about the 28 families. It's just wrong.
Yes, I
And,
agree.
and up until this campaign, you really didn't hear that. So that's my concerns with those people. They need their voice needs to be heard, because it affects them greatly just as much as it affects other people's homes throughout the
Right.
There's
course.
no question that
Right.
Route A and B have both serious
Absolutely.
issues. Route B has extra issues, but it doesn't mean Route A is good.
And,
Right,
and you know, they talked about, well, Route A, we have to have frontage roads on 40. No, you don't. They got 250 foot of real estate that's not being used completely.
Wow.
And they could do without the frontage roads, destroying homes, taking out businesses, restaurants, by just adding additional travel lane in each direction on 40. And then that's how I would solve it. So
Well, there you have it. Should have voted for Nick.
Yes, I agree
got
with
my vote
that.
next time, yeah.
So, and I also want to give a shout out to Mayor Heidi Franco. Thank you for last night. You also came out and basically said you're not in support of option B as well. So thank you for listening to the people. That's why we all voted you in. One final comment, Christy.
Yes.
You launched a new website, and I'm super excited. I heard about it this morning, and really the reason that I'm excited for this is that it gives people like me, people like Jill, and others in Wasatch a way to go out and donate so that the fight can continue. And I really truly believe, every $5, if you can do $5, do $5. If you get $25, do $25. If you got 100, do 100. If you got 1,000, do 1,000. Because I don't feel that the 15 ranchers fighting the cause to save the North Fields, which we all love, we all admire the beauty of what it brings to our valley, should be footing the bill for us to be able to enjoy it. It's not fair. It's not fair to them. So tell us a little bit about the website, what the name of it is, if it's a .com, .org, and how soon will that donate button be so that we as citizens can go in and donate whatever we can afford to help protect the Northlands and fight what could come.
Okay, so it's can'tbypassthetruth.org. And this is a collaboration between multiple citizen groups that we are trying to just get the word out there and also trying to educate the citizens. We are always open for suggestions and help with this. If you want to get involved, let us know. We are keeping the information fairly simple so that it's easy for people to understand. But we really feel like, I mean, the north fields are worth saving. We're not saying that the south end of the bypass isn't. We're not saying the south fields are not worth saving. We are happy to help facilitate getting people on board for all of these things and getting groups together to work for the common good. But the north fields does affect everyone, especially in a health way with the water.
Right.
And that is something we need to be aware of.
Okay, so there you have it. That's a wrap. We're going to do the replay next week as well, where the interview with Laren, I always want to say Lauren, but we know it's Laren, Les, and Karen, because that's how we explained it today. So Laren, Gertsch, and we also had Jill Watson on that interview as well. Thank you, Leighton, for everything you do behind the scenes. I appreciate you more than ever. But thank you, and good night. This is recorded, so please share this. We have to get it out, and we'll have an update as well when that donate button comes out, and anything helps, even if it's $1. We have to protect our valley, or we're going to have it stolen from us. So thank you and good night. So, Laren, thank you. I'm really honored to meet you. I've read so much about what is going on. I did have to speak a few things last night in regards to what is happening. But the question that I have for you is, how does this impact you as a rancher and other ranchers? What is it going to do to this magnificent, beautiful property?
Well, let me speak first of all to myself, and then I'll address other ranchers. For me, most of the Route B goes through my property, and so they will basically put me out of business. I will no longer continue to be able to operate my ranch. I won't have enough remaining land. For other ranchers, it's somewhat similar, depending on where they're located. Many of the ranchers summer range in the mountains. They bring their cattle here to winter feed them and to calve them out, and they'll no longer be able to do that because they won't have the property to do it. The bigger issue for us as landowners or ranchers in the North Field, and we discussed it, I discussed it last night, even with the irrigation company. We're standing on the road at 1200 North. UDOT has indicated that they would put an overpass over this road. They would also put one over 1600. They would also put one over 2400 in order for us to move livestock, to move equipment, and really for the general public to cross these roads. The problem with that is they have not built those costs into the estimates right now. And so each of those overpasses are probably $50 to $100 million. Second of all, the bigger issue for us is we are not, the water table in the North Fields is approximately 12 inches to 18 inches below the ground. Now, when you come into the valley, if you look out through the fields, they call it the crown jewel. The reason it's always green is because there's a lot of subsurface water. And so if we don't know water across the top of the land, it still seeps through the land, and that's what keeps everything green. Basically, you water for your neighbor almost to keep the water flows down, and eventually it accumulates and goes into the Provo River, which, as I indicated last night, it's used by the Provo River water users. It then flows into the Utah Lake. It then flows down Jordan River into the Great Salt Lake. The next thing I would bring up is when CUP wanted to install pressurized sprinkler systems throughout the valley, they did it, there was an agreement reached where the North Fields would continue to flood irrigate. And the reason they would flood irrigate is to regenerate the wells within the valley. So we have asked UDOT, what's going to happen if you build a road through the middle of the North Fields and you create basically a dam because of the pressure? One side will be wet, one side will be dry. So how are you going to not harm the remaining landowners in the North Field on the west side of the road, because it will dry up their lands? And basically behind us here is where the road would go, and they got to build ditches on both sides of the road. They would have to take out portions of the Rock Creek ditch, which is one of the main ditches in the area, and they don't have answers. We've said, you've got to provide us proof that you can keep the water table equal on both sides. We asked them how far down they were going to dig in order to put the road in, because usually you have to go down to bedrock to put the road in. They said, oh no, we're not going to go down, we're just going to build on top of the ground. We're going, still, how are you going to maintain an 18-inch water table on each side? And that's where we've suggested that they could save a lot of dollars by moving the road somewhat east of 6th West, that they could eliminate 2 of the overpasses by doing that. If they go up on the bench near 40, they can avoid significant amounts of wetlands. They can avoid many of the water problems that we're talking about. But all in all, it's the quality of the water, it's the livelihood of the people who have owned these properties for years, and basically, let me put it simply, is we've met with the Department of Agriculture. You put Route B through, you have basically terminated agriculture activities in the Northfields and in Wasatch County, in this area here.
Okay. Is that better? And so, Laren, let me ask you, have you seen UDOT's mitigation report and on anything on how they're going to keep the water clean, or they're going to be testing or anything?
No, and we've submitted even some documents and studies and asked them to respond to them. They have never responded to them. Second of all, every time we ask the question, about the only thing they tell us is, we'll figure it out. They have brought the hydrologists to the meeting. We've asked them how they're going to do it, because there have been studies about the flow of the water, the way it works. It flows basically both ways, but mostly south and to the west. And yet their answer always is, we'll figure it out. They don't have a good answer, and they haven't provided anything that would substantiate their claims that they can figure it out.
And then I would think that if they don't have a mitigation process, 100% mitigation process, not 50% or 60%, that in order to preserve the water and keep it clean and safe for the citizens of Utah, wouldn't you think that it would just have to be shut down?
Yeah,
basically by bills and laws?
Yes. I mean, they had got to adhere with what they call the 404 Clean Water Act. They have not demonstrated that they have done anything to comply with that. The other thing is most of this area is wetlands. I mean, whether it's designated on the map or not, it functions as a wetland. And they talk about a 2-for-1 mitigation. Well, first of all, you can't mitigate wetlands with wetlands. So they talk about, well, the imprint's 54 acres. Well, it's a lot more than 54 acres. And it's where are they going to get the land, and how are they going to put the water on the land to mitigate the wetlands? And they do not have a good answer for that as well.
Okay, so there you have it. Jill, I don't know, do you want to chime in? You're a Wasatch citizen. Is there anything that you would like to chime in over here with Laren? I'll hand you my mic.
Well, first of all, I moved here just because this is a beautiful valley, and I would say not only is it one of the most beautiful valleys, but it's one of the most beautiful valleys in the country. And I'm also afraid, besides the health risks that Lori's put in here, and Lauren's issues with, the water for the irrigation for the livestock and everything out here. I'm just afraid that once they start moving things over this way, they're just going to keep annexing more land, and pretty soon they're just going to pave this whole valley from end to end. I think they need to really just consider that we've grown enough on all the sides, and they need to stop the growth, and that will help with the traffic. And I think they could do stuff like you said with the lights, the stop lights. I think they need to test a bunch of different things out here. And basically for me though, it's going to be sad because they're just carving this place up too much. And
they want housing.
Yeah, so. They want housing, but there's millions and millions and millions of acres that direction. I really think they need to do that. And can I mention that SB thing real fast?
Yeah, just real fast.
Yeah.
So nobody gets confused.
So no, real fast.
But it is important.
It ties into this. There's some legislation, and I'll get the details for Lori. We'll put it on our website. But basically, there's legislation that was passed last year that allows the government, if the big plan here is to do the big loop from Salt Lake City down to Provo, up through Heber, and all the way down to Park City. And back down to 80, if they do that loop, they're going to bring in a lot of traffic here. And what they've done is they've said with the developers, if there's a bigger plan for the state, that they can come in here, let the developers pick the spots they want, and they don't have to get approval from our city council here. They don't have to get it from the county council, which means basically they can come in here with no say-so for the community. And it's some really bad bills, which will probably play into this whole issue if they want to override us at some point. So,
And what is that House bill? Is it HB?
it's HB 264, I believe. So anyway, that's going to be something we need to pay attention to.
Thank you.
I would make one more point. The way that the Route B got placed on the map, there was 23 alternatives. And basically they dismissed everything east of Heber on the notion of the vision of maintaining the Heber Main Street. And they gradually, creep this over here to 5, and then they narrowed it down to 2. But the people behind that's been in cahoots with UDOT, and they have listened to, is a couple councilmen from really 3 former, a former councilman and 2 current councilmen from Heber City. And so they've been, this group is the one who proposed this route, and for whatever reason, UDOT hitched their wagon to this route, and have never backed off from it. And a lot of times we think they're just checking the boxes and placating us and being kind to us, but they really don't care what we have to say. And so we think that's very unfortunate.
And that's where we, the people, have to stand up, not onesie twosies. We need the whole entire community. Your health is at risk, the aquifers are at risk, the ranchers that provide so much for the valley are also at risk. But Leighton, can you do me a favor? Can you flip the camera and let Lauren really quickly just explain, as we're looking downstream at what could potentially happen if we don't all stand up?
Okay, so basically, why don't you go, if you look where the pole line is, that's where the road would come through, and it would go down. You can see where traffic's crossing down on SR 113. So it basically goes on a kind of a sweep down through there, and then across 113, and then hooks into the 13th south leg of the bypass. It would come across where the poles are here, if you kind of go to the left, and would hook in basically out on Highway 40 out there by that red barn. And so that's kind of the route of what it comes. But if you look at a topographical map, you're basically cutting the Northfields in half.
Well, there you have it. That's a wrap. And trust me, there is more to come, because we are just not going to kowtown down to Utah. We will stand, and we need to stand in numbers. We need to support the ranchers. We need to support the citizens that live here in Wasatch. But more important, we need to protect the health and welfare of every single individual in Wasatch that drinks the water. So there you have it. Thank you very much.
Bring them fields of green and gold, let their laughter echo clear. In a world so tightly wound, where can our children play? Bring them fields of green and gold, let their laughter echo clear. In a world so tightly wound, where can our children